Welcome to another episode of ArtsyAF.
Thanks for being here. This week's episode is with 2.5D sculptural artist / painter Kyle Dineen.
Kyle creates these really unique sculpture-like optical illusions involving mirrors and lights, and he creates them in, a Google... It's like a Google CAD program, kind of. I can't remember what it's called.
Program of some sort.
Yeah, but they're really awesome and unique. And we met Kyle at Mirror's Gallery Psychonauts opening. He was another artist featured there. And we decided to do a podcast with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young up-and-coming artist. He was visiting Colorado he's from Columbus, Ohio, and it was fun while he was in town to get him to sit down, come over to my apartment, and talk about what he does and what he's grooving on.
Yeah, so we hope that you guys enjoy this one. And without any further ado, Kyle Dineen. We've added a way that you can support the podcast. If you go to the show description on iTunes or Spotify, at the end of the description, there'll be a link that will take you to a website where you can make a monthly donation if you're feeling it.
Or you can go to ArtsyAFpodcast.com, and there's a support the podcast link on the homepage.
It helps us out tremendously, and we're trying to expand, so we thank you guys for all your support. All right, so we got Kyle Dineen. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
Awesome. With us today.
Mean Dineen.
Mean Dineen. You're actually really, really nice. And
yeah.
So...
What's cool, we just met a couple days ago. We all met at the Psychonauts show at Mirror's Gallery.
Yeah. Met a lot of artists that I've been looking up to for a very long time. It was a humbling experience, to say the least. Very excited to just be a part of that.
Yeah, right.
Be in that room.
Yeah, it was such a beautiful show with tons of high-level artwork by a bunch of artists I think we all are humbled to be hanging art on walls with. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's cool. We're all three in the same show, too.
I know.
Yeah. And
Post-Psychonauts show.
Post-Psychonauts
podcast.
Debriefing.
Yeah, Psychonaut's actually a word that I never really put myself in that realm. I always was like, well, I like to take psychedelics and use that as a tool, which is exactly what that is. But for some reason, never connected myself with that. And I saw the invite to this show, and I was like, man, this is it's kind of leading me into figuring out what I'm doing. And as far as the visionary art, it was, again, that I didn't really connect myself with that word because I didn't understand what visionary art is. And I'd like to hear what you guys think about what exactly it is, because I've heard so many different things. It's like you can't really put a definition on it. Yeah,
no one really knows what it is. I think it just is. It has something to do with the feeling of otherworldliness or transcendence, or
bringing something into this realm.
Yeah. And we actually talked about this with Jack Schur, our buddy, and we kind of there's a lot of trappings that go along with visionary art, and the kind of maybe holier than thou type of vibe that some of it can bring. And I
mean, just the word visionary in its own kind of throws you off, because it's like you think of someone that's a visionary and they're like the top of the top, like someone.
Yeah, it's like Martin Luther King, or
I always thought of it kind of. I've had a vision of a brighter, more beautiful future, a more creative, communal, healthy culture, and that in realization of that, I'm creating art in the wake of that towards a vision of a better future with other people.
Right.
So that's, I guess, what visionary art means to me personally. But it takes on so many flavors,
Yeah.
Some are just like dreamscapes, and
Yeah, it could be an actual dream or a daydream or psychedelic induced. The way that I always thought about it was like literally taking psychedelics, seeing something, and bringing that back into this reality,
Yeah.
which is just a little chunk of it, you know. So that's kind of why I never tied myself to the word visionary artist. And it was about 2 months ago, and I had a very heavy acid trip that. It was almost like the Bandersnatch episode of Black Mirror where you make the guy take the acid, you click the controller. It was kind of like that because I had no idea I was going to take, you know, whatever ridiculous amount that I took. Never had even thought about it. So it was all of a sudden it was in my body. I had no choice.
Yeah.
No turning back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With about 15 minutes into that, my entire body is vibrating.
Where were you?
In my basement at my house. So
that's
I've
cool.
never tripped at my house. I always go in the woods or a festival or a show. So right off the bat, it was kind of weird. But again, like I felt like I didn't take that acid. It was weird. My buddy actually gave it to me and he said, "You deserve this." And I thought about it and I was like, man, I've been working my ass off for 6-7 months straight on the festival in Columbus.
What's your festival?
It's called What Fest.
Hang on, what?
what?
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yep.
No, it's called What Fest. Sorry, just a little shout out.
No, what fest?
Yeah, What Music and Arts Festival, Columbus, Ohio. So I took the acid, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why? And I think the reason why is I need to see my art. This was as I had just been invited to this Psychonauts show and hadn't connected myself with that necessarily. And it took that to see it for the first time, to see my art for the first time through that lens was like that aha moment of like, wow, you know, I'm not the one that's solely in charge of creating these things.
Yeah.
There's something else in play here. Maybe I'm a vessel. Maybe we all are just kind of channeling some energy into our art that is from somewhere else. But
It's interesting, right? When you're just being creative and you're making something, you're in this state of being, your mind's somewhere, you're somewhere. You almost don't even realize what's going on. And then if you take a psychedelic or something that kind of is like a time out from yourself and you look at what you made, you're like, wait, who made that? Like, who was that guy? What happened?
it was exactly what happened, man. I looked at the piece that I brought to the show. I looked at it and it was not just moving and beautiful, but like straight up, it was a portal of energy that was just like flickering all these beautiful colors in my face. But at the same time, it was like laughing at me like, oh, you thought that you were the one that did this, you know? And I'm just like, man, what is this? But it was interesting because to that point, I had never saw anything that I did as visionary art or, you know, even psychedelic, even though the one piece that I did that I brought to the Mirrors Gallery was probably the only piece that I would have considered visionary because it was something that I physically saw while hallucinating at a Bass Nectar show, actually. And it was this grid made out of data, all wrapped around the walls, wrapped around the skin on the guy in front of me selling water bottles. And it was on the floor, it was everywhere. And I took a second to be like, okay, pay attention. You know, what is going on here? What are these patterns? And I'm realizing, you know, there's S shapes, there's L shapes, there's squares. There was only no line ever turned more than twice. So you get an S shape at max. There was no single line. If it was a single line, it was just a square. But every one of these shapes fit perfectly into this grid. There was no weird spaces. You know, it was the exact same spacing around every single thing. And I started looking at these details and picking it apart. Like, okay, focus on this. Like within 30 seconds, the whole thing kind of starts to fade away as my adrenaline kicked in, realizing like, oh shit, you know, we might live in the Matrix. Like very, very scary moment.
It's so interesting too, because when you do see that, it seems really important to pay attention to it, and it's so fleeting. I don't know.
Yeah, then you can't really word it or language it.
And I honestly, it's something I don't even expect to ever see again. Like I feel like I could try to see this thing again, and it just has to be the right scenario.
I think I've found, you can't force it. I've seen it many times over the years, but it's something that if you try to see it, it's gonna be elusive.
It's like trying to call a cat over to you to pet it.
Yeah, and then
they rarely will come over.
Yeah, and then every once in a while, if you're kind of like zenned out or something, in the right space and the right time, you'll feel this impending like, oh, and it just opens up to you. And
I have a feeling it had a lot to do with what was going on around me at the time, because there was it was probably 20 minutes into Bass Nectar's set, and right at the time where, you know, kids are just flooding out of this place, like going to get water or going to get themselves taken care of. There's a dude that fell down the stairs. Was not a good sight to see when you're in that mindset. There was a guy in a wheelchair behind me. These things were happening. These balloons were popping above me. These giant balloons were popping like machine guns. And I'm just I'm all over the place. You know, I feel like my brain didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden this pattern appeared and I had no idea. Like, it seems like it should be the other way around. You know, when your adrenaline really pumps and starts to kick in, everything should go back to normal. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, something leading up to that, or maybe it's just the right timing, kicked this stuff on real quick. And even after it faded away, I saw it in certain things throughout the night, like in the way that the crowd was moving. Yeah. It's just very weird, subtle things that I kept seeing.
Maybe it was some sort of like pattern to let you know that even though all these crazy things are happening around you, that there's some sort of quote unquote plan. Yeah. Or at least a grid or a matrix where things
and this feeling of like freaking out by clinging on to the physical reality you're getting, it's letting you know that don't freak out, man. It's all this perfect divine grid pattern.
Yeah.
There's also something interesting about how you said you never really thought of yourself as a visionary artist or a psychonaut, but then being part of an art show, kind of with that title, kind of awoken you to that, which I think is a really interesting part of art, is that if we make stuff, we just keep it to ourselves, we miss out on so much meaning of what is happening. So then feedback you get externally kind of helps shape and help you understand how you're orienting with the world. That was
the interesting part about it, is like out of nowhere I get invited to this Psychonauts show, and I'm like, wow, okay, so maybe I am a psychonaut. Maybe what I do is visionary art. But then when you really think about it, this grid that I'm describing to you guys that you've already seen, and I know tons of people have seen it and have their own iterations of it. I got back to the hotel room, I drew this out. I got back home, I put it in my computer and expanded it. I took a chunk out of that grid that stood out to me and found different reflections around itself to get that full four-way reflection. And just, it was one of those things where, again, you kind of, you know, not necessarily black out, but you wake up towards the end, you kind of snap out of it and you're like, whoa, shit, what is this thing? And it already has colors on it. Like, it's already in 3D. Like, okay, I'll take it. And that was it, man. I sat there for another couple of days and I threw different color palettes in there and I tried different things to make it look better. Always the original one. You know, I always go back to that original one.
Yeah.
So you're working out of Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
And would you call yourself a sculpture artist?
I guess. I mean, that's the way that I've described it to people, because the immediate question when you tell someone you're an artist or they find out, well, what kind of art do you do? It's easier for me to just be like, well, it's sculptural. Yeah. But in my mind, it's kind of still 2.5D, because all I'm doing is really bringing up those layers and extruding them up. But there's not another plane that would be like 3D, unless you count those edges, you know. Right. But it seems more of a 2.5D thing.
Gotcha.
The one that I just recently finished has like 3 different planes in it. Still 2.5D, but you can get some slopes in there and some breaks in there that are interesting. But
that one's really, really cool, man.
The Mind Sounds.
Yeah. I think it's your newest one on your Instagram.
Yep.
And it's got like, again, we'll post pictures and stuff, but it's like these sloping notes, kind of cubes coming out of the wood or your two-dimensional surface. And So like, what kind of tools do you use? Do you use like a CNC or
For that piece, I did use a CNC router. I used, it's just white maple plywood, so it's about 1/4 inch thick, and I just cut everything out on the CNC machine, prep all my edges with like spackle and primer and stuff like that, fill in the little gaps and make it smooth.
Nice.
Just tons and tons and tons of prep work, especially on that piece. It's like the most fun part is always the painting and assembly. It's like seeing it all come to life. Yeah.
So they all start out as drawings? Do you have a design experience?
I had no design experience or anything really. A lot of them start out on paper. I get like 15% through the design and I'm like, all right, cool. And I'll get into the computer and continue to expand it on there.
All right. Right on.
Usually the computer is where that kind of like blackout type thing happens where you just go and you're more like in a trance and, next thing you know, you had been there for 2 hours working on something kind of unconsciously, and that's where that channeling happens. And I know the difference between when I'm in that zone and when I'm trying to make art.
Yeah,
totally.
Night and day difference. When you're trying to make something, you just it's not even close to the same.
Yeah, for me,
you're
it's
making decisions.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to make
it's
decisions.
It's not really a decision. It's more just like following the next thought or following the next move. And it's barely even a thought. It's just like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. And I'm also like thinking about how cool it would be if I did this brushstroke right now. And, or, you're just kind of, I don't know what to call it. You're in the flow, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what everybody
flow
says.
State.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that helps me out with staying in that flow state, when I use SketchUp to design stuff, I will take a copy of whatever it is I'm working on. When I get to whatever point that I'm, subconsciously, I'm like, all right, make a copy of this, put it over to the right and continue working on it. And you'll never mess up with, because that way it's continuously growing each step of the way. And if I can just make a copy of it, I don't even have to worry about making a conscious decision or messing it up or taking the wrong path, even though there is no wrong path.
Right.
But it's cool because once I get to the end, I can go back and see my thought process from, okay, I started with this square. I cut the corner out of the square. Yeah. Then I cut the triangle. I cut it into a triangle and I flipped that. And then I did this and I did that.
Yeah.
But you can see as each decision is made, and I call them decisions, but it's not, of course, because otherwise you're not doing it right. You're deciding.
Or you're not in the flow state.
In the type of state that I like to get in. Yeah, it's not. There are no decisions. There are no rights and wrongs. It's just this
and you can get
motion.
faster and faster.
Yeah, but then at the end you realize that there are unlimited combinations to these kinds of things. And especially when you're starting digitally, and I can see, moving 3 steps right. And then from there, you've got one iteration on the top. You've got one iteration on the bottom. I decided to go with the bottom on that one, kept moving to the right. 3 iterations of that one, chose one, kept moving. And it looks like music.
Yeah.
In the way that, it's really interesting.
It's really cool.
Or like a probability tree or a circuit board. Or
but I think that's the way that I'm able to really stay out of the process, is by just doing that and then kind of letting it happen on its own.
It's a cool workflow.
Seems to make sense.
Rad.
Being able to be kind of a digital artist and then manifest that into actual.
And I've tried painting, and I think that's my issue with painting is like, it's much more of a conscious thing where I'm like worried that I'm going to mess something up and paint over it. But if you can get to that point where you're just like, I'll paint over this, paint over that, this part, you can basically do exactly what I'm doing on the computer, but with a canvas and a paintbrush.
Right,
so I'd love to be able to get to that point in painting to where I can comfortably just like get anything out there, unconsciously, essentially.
There's like all these layers of creativity. And I think what's cool too is just being present with whatever way creativity wants to flow through you. You know?
Yeah. I mean, and whether that's music or dance or any form of art, I've actually started making a little bit of music myself too.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Definitely want to dig into that quite a bit more because it's a really good outlet. Really good creative outlet.
Yeah,
It'd
totally.
be cool to perform music on a stage that you made yourself.
Yeah, I've talked about it. Maybe that means it'll happen. What do you guys think about manifestation?
Yeah, sometimes you gotta be careful about what you say because you're like, oh,
I know.
now I have to do that.
I know. That's like me with comedy.
Yeah. Well, there's this funny thing where I think, I guess when I was younger, or I didn't have as much belief in my own ability to do stuff, you just say things and not feel a commitment to it. But I think as I followed the art path and learned how to paint, learned how to, I don't know, do everything associated with it. After a while, you start realizing, like, if I say I'm gonna do something, like, I have to do it.
Yeah. Or else you're gonna feel that, like, pang of regret in the back of your mind, you know.
And you're kind of like a liar too.
A bit, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, usually when you say those things, you're confident enough in them that they happen. I think that's a big part of it. Also, totally. Visualization, being able to actually see that whatever it is that you're creating, or like these things that I've done, that I've talked about, I have seen them in my mind very clear. And, you know, they're not spot on, but if you can see it in your mind, that just adds to the confidence of being able to do that thing.
Sure.
You've already seen it.
Sure.
And I've had dreams of seeing my own art in a dream, like in a gallery. And I got extremely jealous. Like, it was weird, man. I got really, really jealous. I was like, man, someone straight up did my thing better than I could ever do it. You know, it was like,
no, that's your
took me a second to realize I was in a dream, that I created that in my dream and walked up to it. And I was like mind blown when I woke up. I was super happy. Like, someone didn't beat me to my thing. It's just like hilarious to say, because it's not even like, that's not even a thing. You know, everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own thing. And like, there really shouldn't be any type of jealousy in the art world, because like, when people are doing awesome shit, you should be right there. Like, yes, continue doing that. I'm going to do my thing. Let's meet up in the middle.
Yeah, totally.
So it was just one of those weird things where, you know, in a dream, you might not necessarily feel the same way we do when we're awake. So it's like that jealousy and those deeper things are easier to come out in there.
Right. Yeah. You're not able to,
you're not level-headed.
consciously repress any like unwanted emotions in your dream. But that's cool. I don't know, you know, that's such a great adjective there, but that's interesting.
It's really interesting too. I mean, when you don't just say like, oh, that's your imagination. So you have a vision of something that's going to happen. And if you actually take that stuff to heart, or you take it seriously, per se. Sincerely, yeah. If you take those things sincerely, like what is manifesting out of your imagination, or what you're downloading, and if you actually honor it and appreciate it, and, you know, act right now in accordance with what would get you towards that thing that you visualized, it happens again and again. Yeah. And then you start waking up and you're inside of your dream, you know?
Yeah.
And then as you keep practicing that, you know, having a vision, having an inkling of something, then achieving it, it becomes habit after a while.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, making goals. For me, that's when I hear people say manifestation, I usually think you've either made a goal consciously and written it down and gone for it, or there's some kind of goal within you that's so strong that it pops up through your dreams, or you want to will it into reality so much that you take time maybe to visualize it and see it come true. I have a hard time with the visualization thing, or I've just never taken the time to do it.
You mean like seeing actual visions?
Yeah, just being like, oh, okay, I see myself, you know, selling all my paintings this year, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on different types of people. I think intuit differently as well. Like, I don't think everybody maybe is a strong visualizer. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they're less tapped in. It's just kind of how you're like.
Right.
Yeah, and mine comes and goes. I mean, I'm not like, I can't just close my eyes and go somewhere like Tesla.
True. Yeah.
You know, like go build machines in my dreams and fix them up and figure out what's wrong with them. Like, that's a whole nother level. But like, kind of this daydreaming of like seeing, you know, a festival or a future like stage or something that like in the daydream type vision, you don't even necessarily know it's yours or like something that you're doing, but the feeling is present. And I think that lasts quite a long time.
Sure.
And that like deep urge of like wanting to actually complete these goals. And I've never actually written any goals down, but like that's something that I'm actually, after this, was like, I need to actually go and write some of these things down and check them off as I go.
That's what works for me. That works for me. And then also if I'm just like full throttle flowing through life, things seem to just like pop, pop, pop. You know, like good things happen, more good things
in pairs
happen.
of threes.
Yeah.
That's interesting how if you're just flowing, it works. But if you write stuff down, it works too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be the left brain, right?
Yeah,
brain
it's a
thing.
collab between the hemispheres.
Yeah. I found like a tremendous shift in my life by actually writing stuff down.
I've heard.
Especially like almost anything that is happening. Like, even lately, I've been writing every day what my mood was like that day, what substances maybe I took that day. And you start by actually like getting this stuff out of your mind and putting it on a paper. You get to see everything with such clarity. And then your reality starts shifting in a positive direction just through the act of like chronicling what you're going through.
Maybe you have more bandwidth too, just like getting stuff out of your mind.
Yeah, clearing the clutter.
Clearing some files out. Yeah, I think Terrence McKenna said that, mushrooms is like it's a tool to mathematically unpack the brain into higher dimensional space, I believe.
I like that.
I love it. Yeah, I don't know if that's spot on or not, but...
Wait, can you say that one again?
True enough.
It's... mushrooms are a tool to mathematically unpack the brain into higher dimensional space, which straight up seems like what's going on there. You know, you come back from it and you're just full of creativity for a solid couple months, more than usual. But you feel like there's space. You know, there's it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's like defragging or something, or
yeah.
I don't know.
I've always thought of mushrooms and really any psychedelic to just kind of melt that veil away, that kind of like a sheath that's surrounding us, keeping us in our sober day-to-day lives, which we need to be in this bubble to do the things that we're doing every day.
Yeah.
But you take something like that, like mushrooms, for example, my very first time ever, I felt this bubble melt away and the reality was in front of me.
Yeah.
Looked pretty similar to the one that I'm in, but you know, the tree kind of looked like it was made out of Legos, plastic and stuff. Like, it was kind of cool, but there was more there than just the visual surprise. It was the some higher spaces that we were accessing there, and the more we, you know, test out these things, the more we practice with these substances, like the easier it is to get to these higher spaces and realize what's there. I'm nowhere close to understanding much of it, but it definitely is a tool. It's not something that I really do to just have fun, but even at shows and stuff, man, it's a tool to like listen to the music in a different way. You know, I totally feel like the music is different when you're listening to it on acid or mushrooms.
Oh, definitely.
You appreciate a lot more subtleties in it.
Oh yeah. I mean, at Electric Forest this year, I was combining mushrooms and acid throughout the day, and I started seeing like energy fields coming off of people, and the people that were running around smiling, having a beautiful time, seemed to have more of this glow coming off of them. And it was like it was really fuzzy. It was almost like a mirage where you see like heat coming off of a pavement or something. It was like heat coming off of these people. But it was a very fuzzy, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but almost like you could see that there was like a very fine mist
around them.
But instead of only seeing the plane that's directly in front of you, you're seeing three-dimensionally in space all of it, you know. So that's not a good way to explain it, but
They're like energetically charged up, and maybe if they're in a state of peace, it's almost like they're not so locked in to their idea of themselves. So you're seeing this like fragmentation of
all their selves,
then dissolving into the one. And being present and illuminated in that. Also,
what you were just describing reminds me of that question mark piece that you did, because there's, I don't know if you use mirrors. I wanted to ask you about that. Is it
it's an infinity mirror.
Okay. And so it's like a question mark, and it's, I don't know, maybe you could explain it.
Yeah, so it's a question mark. It's about 3 feet tall and only 3 inches thick, but the illusion that you make with the mirrors within that 3-inch channel makes it look like it's 5-6 feet thick.
Yeah.
So the way that you do that is, I mean, imagine yourself standing in like a bathroom with a mirror on both walls. You're essentially standing inside the channel. Mm-hmm. So that's basically, and a lot of times when I make my art, I imagine shrinking myself down to that level. So even the question mark, it's like shrink myself down into there. Mm-hmm. You know, what could go on in here to change things up quite a bit. But you have that 3-inch gap, and that's important because the larger the gap is and the more light that's inside of that channel, you're going to get more reflections off of that. So I've done infinity mirrors with a 1/2-inch gap, and you get, 11 reflections. So I did 3 inches on this one, and I did 2 strips instead of 1, and I got like 30-something reflections out of that. Plus double strips. Yeah. So it looks like there's 60 strips of LEDs in there, but there's only 2.
Right. Huh. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Is there a limit to how wide you can make the channel, and then how much illusion you can pull out of that?
I bet you could make one that looks like it goes to China. If you stepped on it.
It's an infinity mirror, bro.
Yeah, infinity.
Yeah, I mean, it's just imagine it as an equation. You add more depth.
Right.
You get brighter. You add more brightness
asking,
too.
Like practically, is there like limits in terms of material or weight or anything like that?
Well, I mean, when we started talking about bigger infinity mirrors, I immediately imagine them like embedded in the ground, and you can walk on top. I'm kind of like at Electric Forest. I think they've had that the past couple years. But with those ones, I can immediately tell, there's not a massive channel in there. It's probably 1 or 2 strips of LEDs in a small channel. Let's say they would have made that a 3-foot channel and just add even the same amount of strips, but bigger channel.
Right.
Every time it reflects that bigger channel. So for mine, it's reflecting 3 inches over and over until it runs out of light.
Okay.
So for this one, it would reflect 2 feet over and over until it runs out of light. Now, if you pack that 2 feet with strips completely down to the bottom, I mean, you would have a tunnel that you could see as far as your vision could see.
Right.
I mean, you can just scale that up as much as you want.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah.
Let's go to China.
Right.
Did you do construction work or anything before you started making this stuff?
No, actually, it's kind of funny how it all happened because I had never made a sculpture or anything. In my mind, I saw the end of where I wanted to be, and I didn't know where the start point was there. And this all kicked off after my first Bass Nectar show. I was ready to go to business school and wear a suit and tie and make a bunch of money because that was important. It still is, unfortunately. But everything shifted. I went to that show and I saw whatever it was that I saw, that experience, the people, the music, the lights, the entire thing combined. And I said, whatever this is, I have to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was that I was going to do, but slowly after, each show and the months following the shows, I'd take shrooms or something and things would kind of start falling into place. But after each show, I started being more creative and making more things and realizing that exactly what it was that I wanted to do was make stages and be involved in the production and blow people's minds the same way my mind was being blown in that moment. So as I figured that out, I started making small foam board sculptures. This all started out in LA, and I didn't know why I was moving out there. Just kind of an impulse decision. Got out there, walked into my apartment that I'd never seen, and there was, a 30-foot wall with gallery-style lighting all the way down the entire thing.
It's a nice creative
shining on the
space.
wall,
Wow.
empty. There's nothing on the wall, just light. I'm like, well, I'm gonna make some art.
Yeah.
So I knew why I was there, and I started making little foam board pieces, and I would just, like, the first one started on a napkin. And I just drew it out, and then this before I had any skills on Google SketchUp, which even what I do now is extremely basic. I could probably teach someone what I do in a couple of days, like very easy stuff. It's just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But when I was doing hand cut stuff, all my first 14 or 15 pieces were all hand cut, usually illustration board and foam board, and I'd cut them out. I'd do all my measuring and stuff by hand, cut them all out, start stacking things up, and I'd put it on the wall, and I'd start my next one. And it was like, as soon as I finished that piece, I was on to the next one. Wasn't even worried about that one anymore because I was on a mission to somehow get to the stages. And by the time I had like maybe 6 or 7 pieces done, I was like, man, this stuff is, you know, where is this coming from? Like, what is this? And I had a couple pieces that were very in that flow state that I even look back on now, and I'm just like, yeah, I remember that. Because
isn't that amazing, some of those things you capture so early on?
Oh, yeah.
And also, just to reiterate the importance of when you are starting out, just make shit.
Yeah.
Just pump it out.
Well, I was just experimenting and
too much
trying new things
attachment.
constantly.
Yeah. I have a lot of artists say, like, you know, they're newer artists, and they get really lost in making they're trying to make like a masterpiece off the bat. It's kind of like, dude, just keep flinging out any idea you have.
Yeah,
and see
so
what
that's
sticks.
where I started with these tiny little pieces, like, you know, foot by foot, little foam board pieces that would take me 2 days. And now I'm spending time, you know, 2 months working on pieces and stuff like that. But one of the cool things was I finally started getting those walls filled up, and both of my roommates at the time were producers.
Nice.
One of them's Pinwheel and the other one's Yacht Club. And I brought this little piece out to my buddy Adam, who's Yacht Club, and I showed it to him, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a stage one day and you're gonna play on it. I said the same thing to my buddy Stark, Pinwheel, and the first year of the festival, Pinwheel headlined, and the second year, which was this year, Yacht Club played on my stage. So it was really cool. Those are like 2 of the only people that I said that to. The third was Mersive, and I saw him at Electric Forest, and had been talking to him on Instagram like briefly, and ran into him there, and I was like, man, you're like, I'm gonna make this stage and you're gonna play on it. Like, same thing. And that happened too. That's awesome. He played our festival, and it's so crazy, like all this stuff happening, and thinking back to LA and the very first few pieces.
And it's also like it's a testament to where do you put your attention to, and what do you say you're gonna do, you know? You know, if you think the world is shit and you think it's going nowhere, that's where it's going to go. But if you dream some big, creative, fun dreams.
Yeah, if you focus on illness, then you'll get illness. It's the same kind of thing. It works in positive and negative. It's like, focus on the things that you want in your life, and you should have a pretty damn good shot.
No doubt.
Nothing's guaranteed, but like if you just have that gut feeling and follow it, you know, there's nothing that can stop you.
Exactly. Do you have, you know, did you ever formulate a specific mission with your art, or are you just kind of watching it unfold?
Well, that's like seeing the end goal before I even started was like, I knew that that's where I was going to get. I had no idea how I was going to get there. And I realized once I started making these sculptures that this was the vehicle that was going to lead me to the people that I needed to meet and the opportunities that I needed to keep progressing in that direction. I started learning how to use Google SketchUp in a more efficient way than I was before. That helped out quite a bit. I had to get out of my comfort zone a lot, though, which is the way to do it. You know, you can't just move forward being comfortable the whole time. You have to push it.
You have to constantly. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable, really.
Right.
But then you start realizing, you know, if you want anything to change, you have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like,
or if you want those few days of those really comfortable days later on, like Corona on the beach days, like you're gonna have to bust your ass.
You got to earn that shit, or else it's not gonna mean that much to you anyway.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I stepped out of my comfort zone. I think the biggest one right off the bat was learning how to do LED stuff. And I knew that was a big part of it leading into doing stage stuff and installations for festivals. So I had to go on Google and I had to learn what an amp and a volt was. And like, what is a ground wire, and like these pretty basic things that I had no idea, like very, very little idea of what was going on with that. So I learned the very basics of that. Started out using some analog LED strips that, you know, the whole strip plays the same color at the same time. Then I got into doing digital strips where you can program each individual LED.
Nice.
And it took me a whole day just to figure out how to power those things. I mean, and it was a very simple diagram on Google that like now I look back and I'm like, man, how did it take me so long to do? You know, that was out of my comfort zone. This is not something that I typically do. It's very like literal and like not yeah.
Yeah.
The tech stuff has not been my strength.
Yeah.
So I was big, like stepping out of my comfort zone for that. I finally, I learned how to solder and like stuff like that, and just started slowly growing it and trying new things along the way. I never wanted to make a piece and be like doing the same thing I did before. It was always what can I do new this time? What can I learn this time? And once I moved out of LA, it was time to scale it up quite a bit. And also I had access to CNC machines, laser cutters and stuff like that here in Columbus. Well, back at home in Columbus. So that was another big reason for leaving LA, other than the fact that I had no money left, no space to do anything. Like,
it must be nice actually living in Columbus where it's not so expensive. You don't have such financial pressure.
I moved straight back to my mom's house and I started cranking out art. I lived there for 6 months with my girlfriend, Michaela. And then we moved and got our own place, and the studio started kind of getting a little bit bigger. Not bigger, but like I'd have a garage and a basement rather than just some little room. And at my mom's house, I ended up taking over basically every room except her bedroom and the living room. So it was things that were not possible back in LA.
Shout out to supportive moms everywhere.
Oh yes, she came to both the festivals and was bawling. Like that's my son over there.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's so cool to see her there, and just like she's been there since day one of me talking about all these things. I'm gonna make stages one day, Mom. I'm gonna take care of you. Like all these things, and that's all gonna happen because I'm not stopping until it does. Like,
hell yeah,
that's the mindset.
That's so fun.
Take care of Mom.
You get to share it with her too. Like
she gets to be a part of it. She flew out to Denver for the Mirror show.
Awesome. Oh, did she really?
Yeah, she was there.
Right on. That's awesome.
Rode scooters around town the other day for like 2 hours, and the first time she got on it, she's like, I don't know about this. She's freaking out, and then 5 minutes later, she's zooming around everywhere. So it was really awesome having her out here.
That's great.
It's been awesome.
Would you say that they're like taking care of her is a big motivator?
Absolutely.
For your art?
Yeah. So that's always been one of my goals, even before I ever knew how I was gonna make the money to pay my mom. Give her, I want to buy her a house. I want to do these things that like can help her just like enjoy life even more than she already is, and like not having to worry about like money at all. That's a big thing for us. Like lower middle class family. Like we never had a lot, so I'd love to be able to just like give her some extra money to be able to just do some things that she's been wanting to do, take a vacation. Like that's the dream. Yeah, for sure. And then Bass Nectar has been the fuel behind all of it. Like going to these shows kind of snaps me back into like grind mode. It's always grind mode, but like it's the same kind of thing with mushrooms, man. I'll take them, and 3 months later, that super creative energy that I've been riding off of for 3 months kind of fades out, and then you take the next trip, and then that kind of happens again. It's the same thing with Bass Nectar. I'll go to these shows, I'll feel like my tanks are completely refilled. I have all this creative energy and just all this extra drive that it's every 3 or 4 months you go to a show, and it's like you top the tanks off. Every once in a while they get a little too full, and it's just constant, so I go to as many shows as I can, and I keep filling that up, and it's leading me in the direction that I'm going in. It's inspired my art beyond belief.
Right on.
Like the music has straight up inspired the sculptures that I make in a literal way.
Totally.
Like even from when I started, everything's been inspired by music. My first piece was called The Drop, and it was a very square piece, but it had almost like a little waterfall line dropping off of it, and I called it The Drop because that just made sense. The next one was Mystic Groove. There's more. 808, there's another. They're all musically inspired, but it's, again, back to that kind of focusing on not focusing, the unconscious creation. Like I create these things, and then it comes to name them, and it's like, bam, there's no thought in that either.
That's how I do
it. It is what it is, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like an accompaniment. It accompanies the music, and those combined together create such a more spectacular experience than one on its own.
It's cool going to see any high level artist or band or musician do their thing, because you can kind of see like the levels you can reach. Like Bass Nectar's production is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, what, lasers, sound rig, stage design,
Yeah.
Yeah,
all that.
It's
You can kind of see or get an intimation of what it might be like if you just keep driving. Just
yeah,
keep
when you
pushing.
see the best shit, man, you know.
Yeah.
Or it's like if you go to Cosm and you see Alex Gray's artwork,
Right.
you're like, oh, I want to make some killer fucking paintings.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
to a Tool show. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be like, fuck yeah.
Hey, did you hear Tools on Spotify now?
Yeah, I did. I heard that. It's pretty funny.
So Kyle, go ahead, Andrew.
You go.
I was just wondering. So what's a typical day for you? You know, do you have a ritual, daily practices?
I mean, not necessarily, because my workspaces are all over the place. So I've got the Idea Foundry, which is downtown, about 15 minutes away from my house. Right now, where I'm living, a lot of my work has been done out back in the garage. So it's usually, depending on what I'm doing, it's wake up, cup of coffee, and either straight to the Idea Foundry or right back out into the garage out back.
Right
Now, I always have music playing. Pretty much can't really get into that zone without it. I'm sure that's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've been doing since I moved back from LA is actually like visualizing the music and creating that, like I was saying, that literal piece of art that represents that song or that moment of sound or whatever it is. It could be an individual sound or an entire album or an entire artist. The feeling that you get from that artist can be translated into a sculpture or a painting. So right when I moved back to Columbus, I got a commission, and this lady was like, well, how do we go about doing this? You know, I've never done this before. I wanted to commission you for this piece of art. And I was like, well, what we could do is you could just send me some music that really inspires you, and maybe even a color palette if you want. And like, I may or may not use it, but like send it and I'll check it out.
Yeah.
So she sends me Mozart's Symphony number, what was it? Symphony number 40 in G minor.
Okay.
So this is like a 30-minute symphony or whatever. And I never had exposed myself to this music and actually like listened to it with intent.
Yeah.
And it kind of just, I've heard it before. So I
mind-blowing,
listened to this over and over and over and over and over until I found that section of music. Same thing with the grids that I was talking about. I find a piece that really stands out to me and I use that one piece. I might have spent 2 hours on this entire thing and then used a little chunk that took me 5 minutes.
Right, yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing with the music. I listen and listen and listen, and a part stuck out to me, and I started like picking apart that music, and it was really interesting for me because I was kind of out of my comfort zone with that type of music, but immediately slipped into this like blissful, like visualizing myself floating in the universe with gardens of like roses next to me, and they were like pinks and maroons and tans, and there I pulled my color palette from that, and then I started thinking, what's the structure of this thing going to be like? And this was a very like me being present the entire time. So it was very weird, but still there was something else at play there. But I was very present in this one. It was picking apart music and physically making a sculpture about that.
It's really
And
fun.
I pulled
That's
out
awesome.
like groups of threes and stuff like this. And even afterwards, I looked into Mozart's music and watched a couple of documentaries and all the mathematics and stuff that people are like finding in his art. And it might not have even been intentionally there,
Right.
but something that he was channeling. And I'll even go back, this piece in particular, it was really crazy because I designed the piece. I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to try to put some golden ratios in this piece. And I went and I started measuring things, and they all fucking fit the golden ratio already.
Nice.
And I checked out on a couple other pieces, and they seem to like, it's just this natural way of when we're like putting these things out, like things just fall into that naturally.
Yeah.
It's weird. And it was cool to go back and measure those and actually be like, wow, I'm pretty damn close, you know?
Isn't that crazy? You can accidentally do that with
Yeah.
geometric art.
Yeah.
You
And
know, so I know like Van Gogh hit that without, he wasn't measuring shit,
No.
but you tapped in that flow.
yeah, I usually do them. If I do any double like measuring or checking, it's at the end, and I'll check to see if I did use golden ratios there, but I think there was only one piece that I intentionally built it off of that, and I'm actually getting back into that now, where I'm creating grids based off golden ratio like shapes, and then combining grids. It's hard to explain, but it should all fall into that ratio, and even if it doesn't, it's a grid, so it's going to be awesome regardless. I love building things off of grids.
Yeah, you can't.
And then cutting them into pieces and flip. I go crazy with it, man. I just cut things in parts, and I imagine it as like the process of making music. You know, you make a sound and you cut it in half and you flip it and you put it. At least that's how I make music. It's very. I don't know if that's the right way to do it.
It is for you.
It's very visual for me. When I make music, it's extremely visual, and cannot wait to get this push 2 controller that my buddy's given me, where it's now I can physically see this in front of me, the scales, and I can put colors on different scales, and I can put a color on a note, and I can build my, like, whatever you call them, fucking
sound palette.
Yeah, I suppose I'm building a sound palette, and then only using that palette for the song. Yeah, and
doing it.
I don't know any music theory. I don't know anything, but to be able to just listen to a sound, or listen to a note, put a color on it, listen to another one, put a color on that, combine some notes, put colors on those. Like, if I could start color coding things and seeing them like visually, like color blue on the first scale, the scale 2 has orange and yellow or whatever, and I start like putting these together, then that would be the way that I would do it.
That's cool. That's what's so fun about digital creativity now. You don't have to be like classically trained to make awesome stuff. It's like whatever weird way you find that works for you to express yourself. Yeah. And you do it honestly and earnestly. Yeah. With some like cool shit on the other end.
Yeah. And at the beginning stages of any art, I mean, we're doing it for ourselves at the bottom, the bottom line. I still do. Right. I'm sure you guys still do, because it's the way. Yeah. So although our art can inspire a lot of people and can do a lot of other things, like at the end of the day, we make it for ourselves. And I don't know exactly what that means, but like,
well, who are you?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, the self is constantly changing, right?
Yeah.
That's
interesting. So you have to kind of keep up with that. I think that's where a lot of like maybe discontent can come from being creative, is that, or getting stuck in a rut, is that yourself or your person has changed and your creativity might not be keeping up as quick. And I don't think it can ever actually like keep up or get ahead of that, but it's good to at least like strive for something new and different, and just follow your ideas,
Yeah. I just I noticed that the first time I ever tried to do a commission, and it was like I had all this information, I want this and I want this specific thing, like flowing into the background, reminiscent of this object.
Those are tough.
And I'm just like, you know what? I want to make something that I want to make.
Yeah.
I don't want to make what you want. And that's when it hit me. I was like, yeah, I do this for myself. It's not a selfish thing either. It's like you do this for yourself, but it's something that can have an impact on a lot of people. And now I'm starting to see that, and Instagram is kind of the vehicle for that, because people are messaging me, man, you inspired me to do this thing that I've always wanted to do. And I'm like, man, I need to be more active on here. I need to be more active on Instagram. I need to actually post things and describe them. And like, because you get one message like that and you're realizing that whatever it is you're doing is inspiring people.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome.
Well, that's that whole thing too, is that, so you do it for yourself, and then as you follow it and you keep doing it, your identification with self body, it starts expanding. And then, it becomes like, I've noticed personally, at least, like it's non-localized me. You start seeing everything and everybody as you, and that you're this passenger watching it all happen. And I don't know, it's just so cool, like collaborating and sharing with other people, because even when somebody says, you inspire them, I see it as like, all right, now we're in collaboration, because we're both like resonating at this frequency together,
right?
And you're creating art, and I don't know, it's interesting just saying like we do it for ourselves, and like who are we?
It's almost like a paradox in a way. I don't know if there's a better word to describe that, but Yeah, that's why when I say it, I'm like hesitant because I'm like, well, it is for me, but it's like, what does that even mean?
Exactly. I know.
But the only way I was able to figure that out is by doing that commission that I ended up not even doing.
Right.
Because I realized that I wasn't supposed to make art for other people. I make it for myself and it ends up with
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how we
interesting
make what
thing.
we want to make.
Right. It ends up touching other people
Yeah.
or like inspiring other people.
But it starts with us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Starts with-
You can't try and box in someone's creativity with like super specific
Yeah.
requests.
That's why I usually leave it to when someone hits me up for a commission, I say, well, shoot me a song or an album.
Yeah.
Maybe even a color palette
Yeah.
that you like.
Yeah, I keep it
because
to,
I can
like-
be inspired by color palettes alone sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Keep
someone
it to,
shoots
like,
you the right one, even a nice tan or
colors.
brown. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay.
Yeah, that's
Which
the
I don't
thing.
use a lot in my art right now.
And it's like when somebody, yeah, you want somebody, if they commission you, they dig your style. So it's kind of like, hey, I have maybe a little
Yeah.
nugget, and then go wild.
Yeah.
But sometimes people have a request for a commission. It's like, dude, I think you need to learn how to paint because
Yeah.
it's very
You've
specific.
got an idea.
Yeah.
You have an actual idea that would feel a lot better to just like try and manifest on your own than paying me $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a painting.
Yeah, and that Mozart piece, actually, she didn't even want to see it until it showed up at her house.
Awesome.
She didn't see a picture of it. I asked her if she wanted to see it, and she's like, no, I know it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Those
cool.
are the
Send it
best
to
kind
me.
of supporters.
Yeah, I absolutely
We
love it.
just
She
have
has two
total
of my
faith.
pieces now.
Nice.
Yeah, two of my, like, some of my favorite, like, OG pieces from back in the day where, like,
Nice.
I look back on them, I'm like, man, kind of wish I still had that on my wall. One of them I only had for a few days, and then I shipped it off to her. It ended up getting damaged in the mail.
Ooh, I hate it when
It-
that happens.
It looked like this box had been thrown off a building several times and then smashed with a hammer. It was terrible, man. Fragile stickers everywhere. I took a bunch of pictures of it
Yeah.
and ended up getting half the money back from FedEx, remaking the piece for her out of wood this time and shipping that to her.
What was it made out of before?
Foam board.
Foam board.
Hand cut foam board. And then the second one was the CNC wood piece.
Yeah.
This one's called Gravity.
Yeah.
It was a circle, but there was no curves. It was all straight lines, but it was what do you call it when you use points to like draw a line, but it's not like there's no connections between these. It was like an implied circle, I guess was what you would say, all going down to one central point. And I finished that piece, named it Gravity, and looked at it, and I was like, damn, that's a good name for this. Like everything is like sucking towards the middle with like
Yeah.
extreme power. It's a very powerful piece. So I looked at the name. I was like, that's fucking spot on. Like, cool. But yeah, she has those two pieces, the Mozart one, which was called Symphonies, and she has Gravity.
Nice.
Right on.
It's
Cool.
in Texas.
Yeah, that mail stuff, man. I'm so
I'm over
nervous
it
about
now.
that
It's
all the
so
time.
I just pay
terrifying.
top dollar to get the
Yeah.
professionals to do it.
Well,
and then I don't worry about it.
I shipped one out last week, an original. It's 30 by 40. So I went to Home Depot and had them cut a 30 by 40 piece of birch plywood.
Mhm.
And then I just stacked bubble wrap and cardboard, just layers of cardboard and fragile stamps all over it, fragile stickers all over it, and insured it for, the price of the painting.
Yeah.
So should be there by Thursday. I
Well,
guess
good luck.
we'll have to have a podcast updating how that went.
No, apparently I've heard, I don't know how many people care about this, but especially with USPS, if you insure a package, you have to have that art appraised or else they won't recognize the value of it.
Well, art's a touchy subject. You could write your name on a piece of paper and sell it for $50,000.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, that piece of paper gets damaged in the mail. Why should they have to pay $50,000 for it? So that has to go through a separate appraisal process. But
How do you get something appraised?
You have to go to a art appraiser.
I have no idea how that works.
It's
They're
like
around
a
here. It's
It's
middleman
impossible
who
to even
needed
put a
job.
price on art.
That seems like
yeah.
a cool gig. Be like,
Damn.
$100.
Yeah.
Piece of
It's like,
shit.
what?
Yeah. So that piece that got damaged for me in the mail was insured as much as they would allow, which was only $1,000, and it sold for $2,000. So I took that $1,000, remade the piece, shipped it back out, ended up losing a bunch of money on it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, dude, like,
That's what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah,
man.
you gotta-
It's-
I was
like
not
the
worried.
bullet.
I don't do it for money. None of us do. We do it because we freaking love it, and it's an
Yeah.
obsession, and it's like inside of us. It's like deep, some core shit that we
Yeah.
can't even like couldn't not do it. What would I do? I don't know what would I do? Nothing.
That's one of those things. I think it was Chris Dyer was saying it in one of his art workshops about money is like what you put into the art. So say you lose money on this commission, but you're dedicating your time and your energy to the art, and that's going to hit you back tenfold at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I always like that principle of like, you know, you got to do whatever you got to do to finish those pieces and get them out there. You know?
Well, and at the end of the day, you know, if I say something, then I'm going to stick by that. So, and this was the first time I underquoted a project by a ridiculous amount. She wanted to do a $500 commission, and I designed a piece that took me 2 months. If you broke it down, I probably would have got paid like pennies on the dollar for it. But don't regret it at all. At all. Right. She turned around and immediately bought the next piece I made, which was Gravity, or it was a couple pieces later. But yeah, I mean, that's the first time I did that. And then the second time was recently. I got a $5,000 commission and designed this just absurd piece that even now I look at it and I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? Like, it's very, very complex compared to anything I've ever made. It's 22 layers. It's 5 feet by 5 feet. Probably going to weigh close to 200 pounds. Damn. It's got 11 infinity mirrors in it, 1,500 LEDs, all completely programmed.
Damn.
It's got...
So when you do the program LEDs, is it locked in then once you program it? So it'll like always...
That can change as much as you want to, but that is something that's out of my realm. So I've ended up meeting somebody, a friend of a friend of a friend at the perfect time 2 years ago for the stage that I was doing. I built these pieces, had no idea how I was going to control them, put animations on them, because all I knew how to do was run demo code, stuff that was pre-made, that you can download. So I happened to meet now a good friend of mine who's essentially like, he's my LED wizard. You know, if I have like a project in mind and I team up with him on it and he does the coding side of it, but we sit down and do the creative part of the coding together, where I'll be like, ooh, can we flip this part, or can we cut this into chunks, and like very visual ways of describing things. And he'll be like, oh, well, you know, I'm not sure if we can do that. And then 2 minutes later, you know, I pop back over to the table and he's like, yeah, I figured it out. So that's the way that this goes. It's like,
that's a fun part of the
we'll
creative.
work together to be like, you know, here's some cool ideas, and then he'll figure out how he can do it. And it's just kind of rearranging things and testing different things out until he's like, okay, perfect.
Hell yeah.
So, and it's kind of funny because that the LED mesmerator piece that was in the Mirrors Gallery, the Carrie Thompson and Photonic Bliss.
Yeah, shit was wild.
I've never actually met Carrie. I've never talked to him, but I imagine that he is in a very similar boat as me. Is like, he knows the things he needs to know to communicate with the people to do that actual coding. You know, he's the artist, the designer behind the thing. He needs to work with someone else to actually get that tech side of things into there, which is 100% what I do. You know, I could spend years doing the tech stuff, and you know, would just be kind of a waste of my time, because rather I could stay focused on the visual, the sculptural side of things, and team up with someone like Justin, my buddy, who can come and do magic things with the code. So like,
that's such
collaboration, man.
Yeah, that's what's so cool, right? As the thing grows and you want to take it to a higher and higher level, how more people start coming on board. And
exactly how I imagined it too. The art being the vehicle in which I was going to meet the people that I needed to meet to take this thing to where it's going. And it's happening. And now, you know, I'm already in contact with a ton of production companies in Columbus and riggers and guys that I can help set up my stage next year, and coders and people that have experience with interactives and technology. So like, you know, these are all things that I need to be able to meet these people so that I can stay focused on, you know, moving the vision of the sculptures.
And you also build some sort of sense of community around your art too. That way.
That's something that has been developing, and now with the festival growing as fast as it is, a lot more people wanting to be involved. And I mean, that's huge, because time is so valuable, you know, to be able to have a bunch of people put their heads together on a project opens doors, because with just one or two people, that project would have taken months.
Right.
and a lot of effort, which it's always a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So do you have, I want to kind of steal a question that Michael Garfield threw at us before. Do you have, if there was no constraints on anything, do you have this like ultimate mega fucking
Yes.
interesting thing you want to build?
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it though. Because honestly, there's probably so many people that have the same idea.
Right.
And like, that's how it is with everything.
That's
You
the
know,
danger.
everyone's chasing very similar ideas, but
Yeah.
I have an idea of a extremely modular venue that would change every time you showed up to the place. I mean, thousands of stages, potentially. Unlimited stages.
That's
Unlimited, I mean, totally immersive 360-degree environment that you could interact with as well. But I'm sure there is plenty of these already popping up in people's laptops and whatnot. And there's so many things I haven't seen, you know, even just I haven't really experienced VR to the fullest yet.
I haven't either.
Any kind of like projection dome type thing or Burning Man. I've never been there. Tons of cool installations and like people just pushing it constantly.
Yep.
So I haven't really necessarily seen all these things. I don't know everything that's happening out there, but I do have this vision of this really, really awesome venue.
Sweet.
It's never getting designed until things are quite, you know, it's so out of reach right now, which is funny because, you know, the stage that I just did, like, so out of reach for what I was doing, man. Like making paper sculptures and hanging them on the wall and then going and making a 25-foot fully projection map stage that like some of my favorite artists were going to play on. Like this was no joke. It had to be safe. There was a lot of things in play and I was way over my head, but luckily so many people were right there, like pulling all-nighters with me, you know, the nights before to make sure this thing was going to happen. So much support. It's unreal. That's what it takes to make stuff like that happen.
Right.
And that's the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life.
Hell yeah.
For sure.
Did you not sleep very much?
I didn't sleep. You know, I was feeding myself, but I was so busy and running around like crazy that it wasn't ideal. And after being up for 3 days straight, just literally working every hour, my body was completely done. But the adrenaline was keeping me through. You know, I still had to run my LED lights for Immersive and Yeti and Kill Smith. So I'm like hanging in there. The adrenaline's keeping me through it. And then as soon as Yeti was done and off the main stage, we shut off at midnight for the sound ordinance and moved inside. I couldn't even move, you know. I took a couple steps back and like a bunch of friends and family would come, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. Like, dude, this is so amazing. I'm like, thank you.
Is that so funny? Like you get inspired to create something like that by having a blast in the crowd. And then by the time you're the one doing the damn thing, you're like,
so that is hilarious because I was running these two LED sculptures for those 3 sets. And Immersive is like one of my favorite artists right now. Was like the big one that I wanted to get in the festival because he's inspired me so much. And actually the piece that I just posted on my Instagram, that is a gift to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
what's that piece called?
It's called Mind Sounds.
Okay.
We'll have to listen to that song, or at least this certain part. That there's one single note that inspired that piece, and it's like this like deep sea like submarine bass noise. It was like wah. And I immediately like I'm imagining this like submarine with these massive like subs on it, just underwater, just blasting, and in the surface of the ocean, you've got these waves.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That was Winston, if you heard it.
Winston's chiming in.
he's like, I've been there. So at the surface, you've got these waves, and underneath the water, you have this submarine loaded with freaking massive subs shooting this really colorful noise up through the surface of the water. As it breaks the surface, you have the colors from this like chartreusey, like yellow color, all the way to this super hot pink, like straight up like energy coming through the surface. Now, when you look at the different planes in that piece, there's 3 of them. There's the surface of the water and then the surface of the sound breaking through, and it's got a different plane. But it's really interesting how it all came together because I was inspired by that sound, and I sat down and I designed a very, very tiny piece of this like sculpture, like essentially the corner of it. And I brought that into the computer, and next thing I know, the piece is in front of me and it looks better than I could have imagined. You know, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but not really sure how it was going to work. And looking at the piece on the wall, I'm like, it's pretty much how I wanted it to be, better than what I wanted it to be, because I didn't know. You never really know what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's cool. Every once in a while you actually surprise yourself.
Yeah.
It's like most paintings for me is I get really excited for it, and then at the end I'm like, oh, well, I'll do better next time.
That happens all the time.
But then every once in a while one pops out, you're like, oh yeah, all right, I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, even this piece, I spent about 500 hours on it throughout since February. I mean, it's just unbelievable amounts of prep work. I kind of in my mind imagined it would be somewhere around like a 300-hour piece, but there was 50 different colors that I mixed, and I used golden high flow acrylics, so it's a nice thin paint, easy to make gradients with it. You can really dip down the gradient well and work your way up and down until you get a smooth transition between each color and not one color that just skips more than it should. So 2 gradients. One was 35 colors. That was from the yellow to the pink. And then the other gradient was 15 colors, and that was from this light, you know, baby blue, sky blue, up into this really dark, like turquoise, greeny type blue. So with that, that's where most of the time came from. I mean, prep work was insane, but then painting each color out of a spray gun and then cleaning that gun out to put the next color in. And, you know, 4 layers of, 4 coats of paint. And the tricky part with this, the transparent paint, is you could put 3 coats on each one, and then put all your pieces next to each other, and your gradient could be very iffy. 5 that looks smooth, 1 that jumps real quick. So the trick about that is with the transparent colors, you have to be putting the exact amount of paint on. I mean, you have to go farther. Like, if you only do 3 layers, you're not going to get that max color. If you do 4, it's better. 5, it's like, okay, you're getting the max color for sure. Your gradient's going to look great. But by 5 layers, you start to get some of that little texture build up in the paint. So I like to find a medium in there, like 2 or 3. But with the transparency, I had to do more because I couldn't risk getting this whole thing done and then having, 7 or 8 more colors that I had to go back and add another layer to.
Yeah.
So
did you primed it first, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Everything was primed first, and then it hasn't got a protective coating yet, but when I get back to Columbus, I got to do some testing with a couple different coatings. But
do you spray that on as well?
Yeah, and usually I'll do that before assembly, but with this one, it was so many pieces that like I figured it would be best if I did it while it was already assembled. There's a lot of like weird nooks and crannies on this piece too, so I need to do some testing before I'm down to ruin a $500 piece or 500-hour piece. $0 piece. Literally, it's a gift. And I tell people it's a gift, and they're like, "Are you kidding me, dude? You could be making money off that." I don't care, this is a gift to someone who's inspired me more than I could ever imagine. And if I could inspire that person somehow, like, that is totally enough for me. If that could somehow go full circle and he created a song or even a sound or something inspired by that sculpture, like
Sculpture
that would be
inspired by a
amazing.
sound, inspiring a song again.
Yes, full circle.
That's awesome.
Do you have have you haven't been doing this for like even that long, really?
I don't even think it's been 5 years,
which is crazy, right? And
nice, man.
I mean, did it take you time to build confidence to share your work and to ask for gigs, or were you kind of just ready to go?
I've never asked for a gig. I like shut myself off, very much so. I hate Instagram. I hate going on there and doing that. Yeah. But I realize it's very important to like the business side of things, and like recently being able to like have conversations with people that I've inspired, like that, it's necessary. I have to keep doing that. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But like when I first started it, man, I made, like I said, 7 or 8 pieces or something like that. And then I had it all there, and I realized I had to start an Instagram so that I can keep everything in one place. And never really like put too much effort into that or like asked for any gigs or anything. But like that's why I need a business partner. I have a hard time talking about like my art or like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
You know, but it's, even though that's not what it is, it just feels that way.
Yeah, the dream is kind of to be able to just make your shit, and then somebody else deals with all the other aspects. They're like, hey man, you gotta have this piece ready for that, or you gotta be here then, and then you just get to focus on making stuff.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean,
at some point you could get there. You know,
I'm sure. But yeah, I like essentially will shut myself away, make a piece, finish it, hang it on the wall, and do the same thing. And I won't even think about how I'm going to sell it or if I'm going to put it in a show. And I've been fortunate enough to have shows reach out to me, like the Mirrors thing, like that blows my mind. And now I'm going to start probably getting a little bit more out there and sending some stuff out and trying to be involved in more things like that. 'Cause that was amazing.
Confidence booster, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the dream is to just kind of not have to deal with any of that. Just make the art. Yeah. And then it ends up where it ends up.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's where it started.
Yeah. Often dreamed that the art world would be more like the music world, where we would have like managers, just like kind of like full-time tour managers or studio managers, I guess, or something. But I guess you kind of have to hire people, and
I think it's that thing where like you have to figure out how to make it a big enough thing that you can hire people to take over all that shit you don't want to do.
Right. And it's like, we don't want to do it, but it's necessary. And it also takes time away from us just making new shit, which is what keeps us going, I think, as artists.
That is an interesting thing, right? As your art takes off, sometimes you have so much less time to actually just do the raw creative part of it.
Yeah.
But hey, I guess that's what you signed up for.
It's one of those like good problems to have.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. But.
Yeah, I think so.
So Kyle, tell us about your festival.
Okay. It's one of those crazy things that's unfolded into something massive, honestly. Now, if anybody's ever been to Columbus for a long period of time,
not long, but
you'll realize that it doesn't quite have what Denver has or what some of these other places have, with the really tight-knit art community, music scene, just tons of creative stuff happening, backyard stages, like really, really cool stuff. And it just wasn't there in Columbus, and I was ready to up and move. And kind of one of the reasons why I probably moved to LA was just like I was just ready for something new. Moved back to Columbus, and I was having a conversation with someone at the hotel that I worked at, and complaining basically to him about how Columbus didn't have what I wanted. And he kind of chuckled and said, well, then make it. Yeah. It's not here, make it yourself. He was dead serious, looked me in the eye and said that to me, and I took that in like over the next couple of weeks, like damn. Because what I said, my response to him was, yeah, okay, whatever, that's like this huge thing, there's no way it could happen. And he's like, yeah, whatever. That's that's your mindset, then that's what you'll get,
Exactly.
And then he was gone 2 days later, moved to a different job. And I was like, damn.
Did that guy just get that job just to tell me that? Like those kind of things. Do you ever think about that?
Yeah.
We could get tangential with it, but sorry.
So it kind of settled in, and probably a few months later, I had a studio at 400 West Rich, and I met Ryan McKee and Ryan Ransom, who are two of my business partners in it, two of the founders. The festival. Yeah.
Nice.
So they came to my studio and saw some of my sculptures. I probably had like 10 pieces on the wall that day. Immediately started talking about Base Nectar and art and like galleries and all these things. And I knew immediately like these people were very much on the same page as me. And as I got to know them more and more, I was like, these are the guys that I need to work with. Yeah. They had the exact same vision, man. They had been like, these guys were best friends since 3 or 4 years old. Yeah. So they grew up together. They've gone to tons of galleries and festivals all around the country. They're 4 years older than me, so they've seen more than I have. They've been more places and seen more of these kind of things. So meeting them was step one. A couple months later, we actually sat down to plan out an art show, and it was just going to be a show at a gallery, a couple DJs playing some music in the background, maybe have like some food there or something, like something pretty simple.
Was it all your art?
I had everything there. Everything that I made was there.
Nice.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
Rad.
But it was more of a way to like get a bunch of artists together and just have a show. Just have a little party, and it was more of like a party than it. That's what we were planning, some kind of art party.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes into the first meeting, we're realizing like what kind of connections people had, and it quickly shifted into festival planning. So planned out our first festival. We got a grant from the city that covered, half the festival.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Tons of sponsorships that gave us like over 1,600 free beers. So the festival was free. There was free beer.
Damn,
free,
that's awesome.
Free everything.
Whoa.
So that got 1,000 people to show up, and nobody had any idea what they were showing up for. We had no idea what we were even doing. Like we were just gonna throw a fun party. I built a stage for it. That was my first stage, and something I'd been dreaming about for a long time, but very much a level 1 stage, like entry level. Like I knew I couldn't do too much.
Sure.
So I took it a little bit slow, focused on the gallery and interactive art. And I mean, we had that festival vibe, like that ambiance that like you see at bigger festivals.
Yeah.
Just that feeling. It was there, man.
It's happening.
We had no idea that was going to happen. A couple months after that, we started getting messages from people and seeing events pop up like that were inspired by ours, or people that said like, wow, this really, got me started on the thing that was in the back of my head.
Yeah.
So that was cool. We kind of built off that, and this year we wanted to really make it a goal to inspire as many people as we possibly could, have as much interactive art as we possibly could. So we had the festival at 400 West Rich, which is my old studio where we actually met for the first time. There's 150 artist studios in this building. It's an old warehouse that they redid and built studios in. There's a big backcourt area and like they call it the promenade area inside. So we had an indoor stage, which we had a lot of our jammier music and kind of the bands and stuff on that stage. And then the outdoor stage, which was my second stage design that I've done, absolutely dwarfed last year's stage. So anybody that came to last year showed up this year and was just like, holy shit.
Nice.
I remember those 2 little pieces that are now hidden within this giant sculpture. So it was cool to like watch the growth. We doubled again this year, 2,000 attendees just about.
Nice.
Tons of sponsors again. I mean, we worked with the guys from Dreamboy Audio, brought PK Sound and shook the entire neighborhood for like 5 blocks. So that was great. But I think the coolest part about it was just like all these things that we talked about at our meetings, and you never know who's going to follow through with what, we're still at we're very young. So, trusting people to go out and do these things on their own. And then, there was quite a bit of collaboration happening as well. But the day of the festival, you start to see like everybody just busting their ass to get their job done, and it all lined up perfectly. And we had an amazing festival. It ran smoothly. We didn't have any incidents.
Nice.
It was just people executing their jobs, and even going above that to help, me with the stage and the prep that we had to do with that. I had a lot of people donate a lot of time to make that possible. Just overall, it was absolutely a dream come true. There's no other way that I can put it into words.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It's like something that I've been dreaming about for a very long time. And it kind of falls perfectly in line with this vision of the art leading me to the stage design and these bigger things that I want to do. You can't just go make a stage for somebody,
Right.
You've got to do it first. You've got to kind of build up your portfolio a bit before someone can be like, that guy can execute, or this guy can do the thing that we want. So I knew that was the only way. And as the festival started to develop, after last year, I was like, wow, here's my platform. This is my platform to be able to build these stages, And then even after this year, realizing that it's a platform for all these other artists, a lot who had never even been in a show, some that were traveling nationally and doing murals all around the world. It was a really good combination of a lot of different things. We had workshops, like sign language workshop, and just a ton of different activities to keep people busy, like scavenger hunt and stuff like that. So it was awesome. It kicked off hopefully something that can change Columbus and create a scene.
Super cool, yeah.
A super tight-knit kind of connected art and music community.
That's great.
Where people can collaborate with each other. You know, we want to start a collective and like a community space, and these kind of things are on the radar for sure.
Nice.
But it's really, really, really cool to just watch this unfold and watch it connect all these different people. And now we have this like massive group of people that are like fully dedicated to this thing. So it's going to just continue to grow.
Sweet.
Cool.
And it's called What Fest?
Yeah, it's called What Fest, What Music and Arts Festival.
Yeah.
There are already 2 What Fests in the country. I think one of them's in Wyoming and the other one's in West Virginia. It's like a country music festival.
I think you're good.
Yeah, we're good. It's so we're What Music and Arts Festival officially. Everybody
when
calls
does it go down?
So it's July 27th this year.
You're gonna try and have it that same kind of weekend?
It'll be
every year?
roughly around the same weekend, if not the same weekend.
Cool.
It's a good time of year to do it.
Yeah.
Especially with end of July being like really good as far as the weather. And
In
that was
Columbus,
huge for us this year. I took a massive risk with the stage not being covered because it was going to be another $4,000 to get the tent that needed to cover that entire stage.
Yeah.
So was rolling the dice, hoping for good weather.
Yeah.
We got it. It couldn't have been any better, man.
That's
Nice.
great. Well, keep your eyes out for What Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
huge.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very, very proud of everybody, man. It was really awesome just to see everybody like follow through with the things that they were saying.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's like that's a big part of the hero's journey too, right? You left home, saw people doing cool shit other places, and then you went back home
Yeah.
and brought that vibe to where you're from. They didn't have it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, it's impossible without the people I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could never do this on my own. No one could ever do it on their own.
Totally.
Exactly.
It's such a grassroots thing. Like, it started off with, I know this guy who does this, and, my buddy's sister does this thing, and we'll just bring all these people together, and we'll do it all at this spot.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, next thing you know, we got lighting. We've got all the things that we need. Vendors, and free beer.
It's awesome.
We actually had our own beer this year. It was a What Jam session.
Dang.
Nice.
Strawberry IPA.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important to have hubs like that, build your own hub kind of, where you're from. We couldn't pull it off where I lived at the time.
Yeah.
I'm from Lexington, which is kind of just down the road from you
Yeah, a
guys.
couple hours from us.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's important because so many people are moving to Denver and lots of people constantly moving to places like San Fran and Austin and just Portland.
Yeah, I mean, this is where my mind was at,
Yeah.
I was like, well, it's not here, so I'm going to go where it is, and I'm actually glad that it's happening the way it is because now we have a chance to like take our hometown and like make something that
build
we
it.
want.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in Columbus that want this same thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not something you can even put your finger down on, but anybody that goes to festivals and like experiences these kinds of things and has been out to Denver, it's my first time really like exploring Denver and actually spending time here. Amazing vibes out here. Boulder's freaking beautiful. I see myself living here at some point.
Yeah.
But we've got some business to do in Columbus first.
Yeah, totally.
So however long that takes, and then whatever's next.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, what do you got coming up next? Anything? Just studio time? Or?
So the plan is when I get back home in a few days, get cracking on this massive commission piece that I was talking about with the 11 infinity mirrors.
Awesome.
5x5 piece. Luckily, that's not getting shipped. It's actually getting personally driven out to LA where it's going to live.
Nice.
So less worried about that side of things.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty stoked for this piece. It's something that like I look at and I'm just like, how the fuck did I do that?
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to like
That's a good
continuing to learn a lot of stuff from this one, because it's definitely out of my comfort zone.
Awesome.
And I learned so much off that immersive piece that I just finished. Kind of back to what you were saying, with you finish a piece and then you're like, well, you know, I'll do better next time. It's like I still had that same feeling with this one. You know, it's amazing. I love it. I'm really like happy with the way that it turned out, but I will do better next time.
Hell yeah.
Every piece, it's like you learn so much throughout the entire process.
No doubt.
So it just gets better.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Real quick, tell people where they can find you on Instagram.
Yeah,
like
so my Instagram is Art by Dineen, ArtBydineen. I don't really use Facebook or anything too much, so I just keep Instagram as like my hub for my art. But yeah, you can find me there, shoot me a message, and I'd love to like answer any questions about my process or anything like that, which is something that I'm going to be trying to dig more into. Yeah, the Mira show kind of opened me up to, I need to explain more of this and show the process of it. So like definitely keep an eye on the Instagram stories, because I feel like that's a really good way to get out like process stuff, behind the scenes stuff.
Totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, go check him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, man.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Later. Thanks for listening to another episode of ArtsyAF podcast.
For additional images and notes on this episode, you can check out our website, artsyafpodcast.com.
And you can find me, Andrew Norris, at andrew.norris.arts on Instagram, and andrewnorrisarts.com is my website. I also have links on my website to episodes as well as all my best paintings.
And you can find me, John Speaker. My website is johnspeaker.com. On Instagram, I'm at John Speaker, and on Facebook, John Speaker Art.
And we want to give a special thanks to Blair Speaker, John's lovely wife and creative director of the podcast. She also updates the website and does all the podcast notes. So thank you, Blair.
And we'd also like to thank Tyler Billman. He created the music for this podcast. You can find Tyler on SoundCloud and Instagram. His name is Get Billsman. That's GETBILLSMAN.
Thanks again for listening. Peace.
Thank you.